Karen cut our ranch fence for a party and triggered an FBI alert. Folks think ranch life is quiet, sunsets, silence, maybe the occasional coyote yapping in the distance. They think it's a postcard. What they don't realize is ranches have borders, fences, gates, signs, laws. And when someone crosses them, especially someone like Karen, they don't just step on your land. They step into a world they don't understand. And sometimes they step into a federal investigation. My name's Colton Reese, 39, third-generation cattle rancher in West Texas. Our spread 200 acres of scrub, rock, and mesquite hugs the edge of Highway 14 about 20 miles from the nearest town. We raise Black Angus, grow hay, and run a wildlife corridor that the government partnered with us on years ago. See, part of our property is tagged with surveillance fencing motion sensors, satellite beacons, even hidden cameras. Why? Because it's a protected migratory route. Pronghorns, eagles, and sometimes things with boots and duffel bags. The feds pay us to keep it secure, and we do. Every square inch. Which is why when Karen moved in, really moved in, I knew we had a problem. She arrived in early spring. Big white SUV, designer shades, one of those tiny yappy dogs that shakes when the wind picks up. Her place. A luxury prefab she had dropped on the edge of our property, 10 acres just beyond our southern fence line. Bought by her wellness foundation. Claimed she was looking for peace and healing in nature. She brought noise and lawsuits. Within a week, she'd threatened our ranch hand Hector for riding too close to her field, reported our cows for pollution odor, complained to the county that our windmill disturbed her meditations, and started handing out glossy flyers for her Healing Vibes and Vineyard HOA. Yeah, you heard that right. She invented a fake HOA in the desert, said it was for aesthetic cohesion and moral accountability. I laughed when I first read the flyer, tossed it in the burn barrel, but Karen wasn't the type to be ignored. And soon enough, she found her target. One Friday afternoon, I was walking the South Line with my dog Whiskey. We were checking for broken posts after a storm rolled through the night before. That's when I saw it. The fence had been cut clean through. Not stomped, not blown over clipped. A 5-foot wide section of barbed wire, removed like surgical tape. Posts pushed aside, prints in the dirt tire treads, probably from one of those damn Range Rovers. And on the other side, tables, chairs, string lights, and Karen in a wide-brimmed hat and mirrored sunglasses, sipping rosé from a stemless glass and directing what looked like a team of caterers. I called out from the fence line. "Ma'am," she turned like I was a pest. Didn't flinch. "This is a private event," she said, waving a hand. "You'll need to go around." I blinked. "This is my ranch. You're standing in my migration zone." She took a long, dramatic sip. "Your ranch is obstructing my flow. This space is open, unused, and frankly, I needed the room. You can bill me if you're really that bothered." Then she smiled. A real estate agent's smile, empty and fake and deadly. I didn't argue. I turned around, walked back to the barn, and did exactly what I'd been instructed to do if this ever happened. I called the number on the green metal pole 2 yards from the cut, the one labeled U.S. Federal Wildlife Zone, surveillance active, 24/7 alert line. What happened next felt like a movie. 3 hours later, just as the party was getting into full swing music thumping, guests drinking under rented canopies, a black SUV rolled up to my gate. 2 men in suits, no smiles, badges flashed. "Mr. Reese, yes, sir. You called in a fence breach." I nodded and led them out to the site. The moment they saw the cut wire and the GPS tag post lying in the dirt, one of them radioed in, and then everything changed. Within 20 minutes, a convoy of federal and state vehicles swarmed the area. Game wardens, Fish and Wildlife, DHS, even a guy with a NASA patch, no idea why. Still don't. Karen's party screeched to a halt. Caterers frozen mid-salad. Guests asked to remain still. Karen tried to protest, even flashed a fake HOA permit she printed on glitter paper. Didn't work. One agent calmly read her rights as she sputtered about spiritual sovereignty and how energetic space doesn't recognize federal jurisdiction. Turns out, the fence she clipped wasn't just protecting wildlife. It was also a live sensor grid connected to a southern border monitoring system. Her party had triggered a federal alert. Satellites lit up, motion triggered, Border Patrol scrambled. They thought a trafficking ring had breached. Instead, they found Karen, with canapes. She was detained. Not arrested, not yet. But they took her statement, logged her prints, seized her laptop, and shut down the party like it was a crime scene, which technically it was. Karen's guests left in awkward silence. Some of them filmed it. One posted a TikTok with the caption, "Came for the wine, stayed for the federal interrogation." Over 4 million views by Sunday. I thought that would be the end. But Karen, she doubled down. Filed a cease and desist against me, claimed I overreacted, and militarized a neighborhood dispute. She emailed the county with a request to rezone the wildlife corridor for community gatherings and spiritual development, and then she hosted a podcast. Yeah, a podcast. Called it Sage Smoke and Sovereignty. Episode 1, How I Survived a Rancher's Hate-Fueled Ambush. I was in awe. The delusion was bottomless, but I wasn't mad. I was ready, because what she didn't know was that the feds weren't the only ones watching now. My neighbors were, too, and the reckoning was just getting started. You'd think getting swarmed by federal agents for cutting through a wildlife surveillance fence would be enough to make someone sit down, shut up, and count their lucky stars. But this was Karen, and Karen doesn't fold. She doubles down with glitter pens and false authority. And this time, she wasn't just dragging herself down. She was pulling the whole damn community with her. After the federal response, the entire valley was on edge. Every rancher for 20 miles heard the story within a day. Some from me, most from social media. The TikTok that called Karen Rose Rambo had exploded. Local papers ran it as a sidebar. Wellness party sparks federal incident on border ranch. But Karen's version, that was even more viral. She posted a 10-minute video from her patio. Hair curled like she was going on QVC. "Hello, beautiful soul," she began. "Last week, I experienced an aggressive, traumatic invasion of my sacred land. A man, let's call him Colton, chose to weaponize government machinery against my peaceful wellness celebration. He lied. He claimed a wildlife emergency. But what really happened was, he couldn't stand a woman in power. He couldn't stand freedom." She paused for dramatic effect, then smiled. "I forgive him, but I will not be silent." That's when the emails started. Some were from strangers. "You're a land-grabbing patriarch. Leave the peaceful women alone. Let people vibe in nature, you fascist cowboy." But others, they were from neighbors. People I'd shared fence posts and feed deliveries with for years. "Hey, Colton, not sure what this whole fence thing is, but Karen says you're trying to shut down gatherings. That doesn't sound like you." And that's when it hit me. She wasn't just spinning the story. She was building a movement. One made of half-truths, Pinterest graphics, and invented bylaws. I had to expose all of it. So I started digging. First thing I did was pull the property records. Turns out, Karen never bought the land herself. It was purchased under an LLC, Equinox Earth Holdings, out of Scottsdale, Arizona. That same LLC was tied to 2 other failed developments, both of which tried to form intentional communities based on holistic healing and anti-government philosophies. Each time, the community collapsed after someone called the county about illegal graywater systems or livestock zoning violations. One even ended with a meth lab arrest. Yeah, so I kept digging. I found her fake HOA charter, titled the Forest Mesa Cooperative of Earth Respecters. It listed 7 articles, none legally binding, and several references to common land restoration via gentle reclamation, which apparently includes trespassing across live surveillance fencing to host parties with wine spritzers and infused hummus. The bylaws required residents to maintain energy cleansing structures, i.e., wind chimes or crystals on all fence posts. Abstain from disruptive mechanical slaughter cookery, rib, barbecuing. Limit the presence of aggressive animals, i.e., dogs, horses, or masculine energy. It was so bonkers I nearly dropped my coffee. But here's what wasn't funny. She had duped people. I found at least 11 parcels of land in the adjacent developments that had joined the HOA some unknowingly. She'd convinced retirees, spiritual seekers, and off-grid couples that the cooperative was real. She charged Earth Harmony fees $350 a year. No services, no legitimacy, just a website, some printouts, and the threat that if you didn't comply, you'd be reviewed for disalignment and could be peacefully removed from the circle. Sounds culty. That's because it was. I compiled everything. Documents, deed screenshots, victim statements. Then I sent it to Victor. Victor Alvarez, a ranch lawyer from 2 towns over, hard-nosed, former DA, friend of my late dad. He took one look and said, "Let's burn it down." Legally? But while Victor was building the case, Karen kept flapping her wings. She hosted another podcast episode, The Sacred Sovereign versus the Cowboy Cabal. Then she threw a healing protest near the property line, droned over my cattle, filmed Hector on his horse without consent. She even mailed my wife a disconnection ritual notice accusing her of being spiritually codependent on patriarchal land claim trauma. My wife, bless her, just lit it on fire and dropped it in the smoker. But my daughter cried, said she didn't want to go outside if that lady with the hat might be filming her. That was it for me. We took our case to the county board. Victor presented it clean and loud. This woman created a fake legal entity, falsified community bylaws, conducted unauthorized land use, and compromised a federal monitoring system, all while profiting off innocent neighbors under the guise of peace. The board ruled 5-0 to revoke all zoning exemptions for her lot. Then came the state investigation. Then the IRS. Then, and I'm not making this up, Homeland Security. Apparently, your part of her healing cooperative had been accepting crypto donations from overseas accounts flagged for tax evasion. The FBI's local field office opened an inquiry. Karen was now under federal investigation for what started as a wine party on stolen land, but what mattered more than the law, the shift, the community shift. People came forward. Elderly folks who said Karen bullied them. Young women who were promised safe goddess space and left feeling violated. Even 2 caterers from the party admitted she never paid them, said she claimed it was spirit exchange. The spell was broken. The desert finally could breathe again. They say some people don't hit rock bottom. They tunnel through it. Karen didn't just hit it, she started hosting candlelit yoga sessions in the crater. Because even with the zoning revoked, the lawsuits filed, and Homeland Security looking into her crypto donations, she kept going, kept posting, kept spinning. And the more truth caught up to her, the louder she screamed. We thought she'd go quiet after the county hearing. She didn't. She posted a YouTube video titled "Reclaiming Space from Rancher Tyranny," sitting in front of a salt lamp, draped in a shawl that looked like it came straight off the clearance rack at Spirit Halloween. She claimed she was being spiritually persecuted, said we were part of an agri-industrial militia backed by cowboy fascism, and accused me, a rancher whose family homesteaded here in 1912, of being a federal land agent inserted to suppress regenerative femininity. But this time, nobody bought it. Her followers started asking questions. Real ones. Where did our donations go? Why did you say Colton's fence was abandoned when it's federally registered? You said we had a community trust fund. Where's the paperwork? Screenshots of her Earth Harmony invoices went viral. So did the names of the donors. One woman in Oregon realized she'd given over $7,000 for spiritual expansion property that didn't even exist. Another in Utah claimed she'd been asked to send biometric data for an alignment record. And then, one of Karen's inner circle, a woman named Bryn, defected and went public. Bryn went on a podcast and said what we all suspected. Karen was lying. She created the HOA because she didn't like the smell of horses. She cut the fence because she wanted a view. And she only used healing when it protected her from being held accountable. Then she dropped the bomb. She was planning to declare the land a sovereign territory free from U.S. law and sell plots to her donors as off-grid sanctuary micro-kingdoms. That caught the FBI's attention, because declaring a sovereign state on U.S. soil that ain't just weird, that's domestic extremism. And that's when things went from bad to biblical. They showed up at dawn, black SUVs, unmarked vans, satellite trucks. I counted 3 different agencies within the first hour. They rolled past my ranch gate like a flood, surrounding Karen's prefab like a movie scene. No guns drawn, just calm, firm execution. Karen came out screaming barefoot, in a tunic, waving what looked like a gourd with feathers tied to it. "I am not under your jurisdiction," she yelled. "I claim cosmic exemption." They read her rights anyway. Quiet, precise, effortless. She was cuffed, loaded into a vehicle, gone. Just like that. But the real story, the one no one tells, is what happens after the villain leaves. What happens when the dust settles and all the neighbors who were too scared to speak finally do? The Saturday after her arrest, something wild happened. People came from everywhere, not just Forest Mesa, but from the next 3 counties, over 200 people, bringing tools, lumber, food, and folding chairs. They called it the Circle Reclaiming. They tore down the crystal poles Karen had planted like border markers, pulled up the fake HOA signposts, spray-washed the sacred space no cow energy banner off the canyon rock. Then they built something new, a real community trail, open to everyone, with signs in English and Spanish, built from salvaged barnwood, saying you belong here. No fees, no fear. We grilled. We played music. Someone brought a rescued longhorn calf for the kids to pet. We held space, real space, not for rituals, but for rebuilding trust. And you know what it felt like? A spell broke. The desert breathed again. Not because Karen was gone, but because we finally stood up and said never again. Later that night, I sat on my porch. Same rocking chair my granddad built. Same whiskey glass he once used. Tasha joined me. We watched the stars. "You think it's over?" she asked. I shook my head. "Nah, people like her don't go quietly, but they don't come back here." She nodded. "Good. 'Cause the kids want to ride fence tomorrow." I smiled. Fence riding. It's how you teach responsibility out here. Not just for your land, but for your neighbors. Because out here, fences aren't for keeping people out. They're for showing what matters. And what matters is this truth: community. And never letting someone with a fake title and a real ego steal either one. Justice doesn't come with fireworks. It shows up in paperwork, in tired courtrooms and signed affidavits, in quiet apologies, in fences mended one post at a time. Karen's downfall didn't go viral like her fake podcast. It unfolded in headlines few folks even noticed, but we did. Because when you live through someone trying to rewrite the law to suit their ego, you learn to appreciate the little wins. And let me tell you, we stacked a few. Karen pled guilty to 3 charges: intentional destruction of federally protected property, fraudulent collection of funds under a false organization, obstruction of wildlife monitoring operations. She avoided prison time. Privilege still walks, even when justice runs. But she didn't walk away clean. Fined $150,000, federal probation, barred from operating or forming any nonprofit or HOA entity in all 50 states. And most importantly, her land was seized, turned over to the state under an environmental reclamation clause. Now it's a wildlife refuge extension. Where she tried to host brunch, there's now a pronghorn sanctuary sign. Poetic as hell. The ranch were still standing. The fence was rebuilt stronger than ever. New sensors, as fresh paint, and a small plaque on the post that was cut. You can't clip a fence built on truth. That one was Tasha's idea. Victor hung it himself. But the real legacy that came in the form of a community council we built together. No titles, no fake badges, just neighbors who believe in open gates and mutual respect. We meet quarterly, not to enforce but to connect. We called it the Back Gate Circle. 'Cause out here, the back gates where you bring your real friends in, where trust walks and drama gets left outside. We talk droughts, markets, kids, and yeah, we laugh about Karen sometimes. Her podcast is now archived in a conspiracy subreddit somewhere under Crystal Colonials. But mostly, we don't say her name. We just keep living. There's a moment I keep coming back to. It happened 3 weeks after her sentencing. My daughter, the same one who cried when Karen filmed her, asked if she could paint one of the old corner posts. I told her sure. She came back with 3 colors: brown, green, and yellow, painted a sun, a longhorn, and a little black wire fence under it. When I asked why, she just shrugged and said, "So people know it's safe again." That's the thing no one talks about. Karen didn't just clip wire, she clipped peace, and now we've stitched it back together, one color, one cookout, one fence line at a time. So if you've got your own Karen, your own fake HOA, your own line in the sand where peace meets pride, here's what I'll tell you. Don't let them write your rules. Not with papers, not with podcasts, not with fear, because land doesn't make a community. People do, and we protect our people. With fences when we must, with fire pits when we can, with truth always. Call to action. Has someone ever tried to claim your space with fake power, with loud words, with clipped boundaries? Have you ever stood on land you loved and been told you didn't belong there? Then let this story remind you, real power doesn't come from made-up titles. It comes from how many folks will stand beside you when you say enough. So speak up, push back, and if you have to rebuild the fence, but this time paint it in colors they'll never erase.